Hey, Monroe.
I am good. Thanks for having me, man.
We're so stoked. You're my hero.
Oh, buddy, come on, man. It's so funny. Dude, I have been following actually you guys, but Christopher and I've been going back and forth for a long time. But dude, I remember the first time I ever heard you like as a guest on somebody's podcast. And it I mean, it just blew my mind. It was crazy because I'm a artsy fartsy creative. I've spent all my time in the studio. So to hear this guy that sounds like, you know, this punk rock marketing guy speaking my language, it was so cool. But
Well, that's how I feel about you.
10 years
How
ago.
did you guys actually meet? I'm curious about that.
So the podcast, I think the podcast was Kevin Miller and Tom Ziegler. I don't remember the name of the podcast. I don't even know if it's still around. But and so that was probably Eddie. That was probably 10 years ago or close to it. I was like jogging, and I had my little routine going, and but anyway, I hear you sounded a little reluctant. It was kind of weird. Like you're not like now I know you as like completely, totally different, but you were a little standoffish. I don't know what it was, but then you got into the conversation, you start talking about category design and I'm like, it changed my thinking. It really, it's like the hero's journey. When you know the hero's journey, you can't not see it like the movie and stuff. That's the way category design is for me. I think in those terms, it's your fault.
Well, now you have the curse that Eddie and I were born with. Now we gave you the disease.
Yeah. I mean, and so, Eddie, I think so. Then I read Play Bigger. I mean, my gosh, you guys, what a book. And, but I read that. And then of course I started following all the social stuff. I'm not a big LinkedIn guy because I'm, just music. A lot of music people don't hang out there. I mean, I think they should, but anyway, so I want to say, Christopher, you like tweeted something out that just hit me and resonated, and I responded, and then he just went off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of freaking out. This guy has responded, I'm just making a comment, and but I think that's when we started going back and forth, and we've had a call or two, and but yeah, dude, I'm not a stalker, but I feel like I know you guys now. I mean,
Well, and weirdly, I feel like I know you. I feel like we're kind of buddies,
Yeah.
We kind of are. It's amazing when you meet in the digital world and you just get that sense from somebody. And then, of course, I looked into your background and all that. I mean, shit, you've worked with everybody, man.
Yeah, much of that is kind of in a Forrest Gump sort of way, but
Wait. Let's say more about that. Like what?
Well, I mean,
you Forrest Gumped your way all the way into a bunch of Grammys and working with some of the most famous artists ever.
Well, that's when I kind of knew. That's when I kind of figured some stuff out. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I kind of figured some stuff out there. But do you want me to just try to touch on some of the story stuff?
Well, we want to hear all. I don't know your whole background. I've read more about you than heard it from you.
Well, so I mean, I'm originally from the South, which is great, but there are all these a lot of stigmas you hear about the South, just in terms of tradition and all that stuff. A lot of those we all have baggage, right? A lot of those are true. But anyway, I am the youngest in my family, and my older brother by 5 years, was a drummer in all these bands. And I was still the kid that would get beat up and stuff, but I played keyboards, started writing when I was like 10 years old, that whole thing. And then when I got old enough to actually contribute to these bands, my brother's friends, all these band guys, they kind of pulled me in and I started working with them. We started writing at 15. I got to be one.
What genre of music we're talking at this time?
We're talking British Invasion, pop, rock and roll, man. Pop and rock. Here's the great thing about the era I grew up in. You could listen 3 radio stations in town, basically, right? One you didn't care about, one was country, and then one was rock and roll and pop and everything. You could hear the Carpenters and Zeppelin on the same station. You know what I mean? and that was just such a great time. And I mean, honestly, that's how I learned to do what I did. But you know, a Beatle fan, I am a total stereotype, but I remember standing in front of the TV, seeing the Beatles at 4 years old, man, on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I knew. And I mean, I had people tell me when I said, "No, I don't. You need to go do that because that's what you do," you know. But
you know what's funny, Monroe, is our church in Naperville, Illinois. Every Christmas for the last 10 plus years, they do a production that tells the Christmas story of the birth of Jesus through the Beatles.
Oh man,
there's no narration. Everything is a Beatles song of some sort, and it's the whole kind of Mary and Joseph looking for an inn, baby Jesus, and that all Beatles
Lucy
songs.
In the Sky with Diamonds, and the whole thing goes off the
yeah. There you go. Yeah. It's incredible. It's probably the best attended event that they have, all year round. Because it's who doesn't love the Beatles, and it's just very approachable. There's some festivities around it, but it's to your point about genre crossing and the beauty of having a radio station that'll play Zeppelin and the Carpenters all at the same time. Like when true category design at that level.
That's a really great point.
Yeah, when you take two things that aren't supposed to be connected and you connect them in an innovative way, ta-da, category design.
Yeah,
so we get Christmas shows through the Beatles. Excellent.
That is so cool. Yeah, you guys knew that. It took the rest of us a little while to catch on, I think. But
you're an intuitive category designer. I mean, I just look at some of the folks that you've worked with. I mean, the list is batshit. Well, Stevie Nicks, U2, David Crosby, Jackson Browne, Cliff Richard, Third Day. I mean, holy God.
Yeah. So here's my deal. So I learned to write with these guys that were older than me. Before anyone knew what it was, we created a little home studio so we could learn how to write and record. This is kind of like they did Sgt. Pepper, you guys. This is a little music lesson. We had 2 TAC 4-track reel-to-reels, and these things weighed like 70 pounds a piece, right? And we would fill up 4 tracks on each one. We would fill up 4 tracks on one, bounce to the next one. That's 8 tracks, and we keep ping-ponging back and forth. Well, it's on tape, and so by the time you get 30 tracks or whatever, the hiss is so loud, you've lost the original tracks that you started with. But anyway, so I learned how to do that, cut my teeth. We wrote, recorded, we made demos. I'm a teenager at this point. We were in Huntsville, Alabama. Closest place for us in our mind was Nashville. Muscle Shoals came way later for me. But anyway, so Nashville, this is how old I am. Went to the library, we did, and got a phone book, looked at, and through the yellow pages, we called every publisher on Music Row until 3 or 4 would meet with us. So then we would demos in hand, and we would drive up to Nashville, and we would take these meetings. And some of these people ended up, collectively, I was in Nashville for like 35 years and 5 in LA. But anyway, so that's how we started.
And you're like, how old at this time?
I got my first tune signed by a publisher at 18. So started, yeah. I mean, dude, we got a lot of stumbling our way through.
Wait, yeah, you did, Monroe Jones.
So the first tune sold at 18. How old were you when you wrote the song? I just want to understand all of this.
Okay, let's see. Actually, that was a recent one. So what happened was I started writing with these guys. We started writing together when I was 15 or 16, and we kind of found our way. So our songs got better, So I was probably 17 or 18 when,
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I wrote that tune with these guys. And so then we started, that was a thing. We started going back and forth. I take a detour and I end up, this is a Southern thing. So my dad was a big architect. He designed like the Space Museum and all these different buildings. And so I like architecture. It's not my first love. But anyway, I followed my dad to Auburn, right? They're famous for their architecture school. And I spent almost 3 years in architecture. And one of my professors literally sat me down one day and said, "This is not your first love. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Anyway, for some reason, when he said this, it stuck and I listened. But anyway, at that point, he knew I was spending all my weekends, man, up in Nashville. But now I've got friends up there. I'm going back and forth, And so he would hear demo tech. I spent probably as much time in the practice rooms in the School of Music there as I did in architecture. And architecture, man, is very rock and roll. It's like the studio. You sleep, in your cubbies. Anyway, the guy was right. And so by spring quarter or whatever of that year, I split and I headed to Nashville. And I ended up finishing at Belmont. And I just went in. Of course, no architecture credits are going to transfer, to Belmont. And so I'm like, what's going to get me out of here the fastest? And they said, a business degree. So I got a marketing degree. But while I'm doing that, I finally make the move to Nashville at 24. I could not get my buddies in Huntsville who had taught me how to write. I couldn't get them to come with me. And I was just kind of crushed. But I'm like, anyway, I had one friend up there, went up there.
Hey Monroe, can I just quick?
Yes.
I just want to get in.
Stop me.
Do you have a non-obvious connection between architecture and music writing that, in hindsight?
What a great question.
Well, and marketing too, right? You're
And
studying marketing. It's like,
Yes.
so what's that Venn diagram?
Yeah. Okay. So yes, they all intersect. Absolutely. And so, so here's the deal. My professor said, you got to understand, man, there are all of these overlaps in designing a building and writing a song. Are you kidding me? There's so many of those. I couldn't, I'm just doing my thing. I'm a little punky kid. And so when I saw that, I couldn't believe it. And so over the years, I've become more fascinated by, artists, art and creativity they're all a big.
Wait. I am so excited. Please, give us some examples. Like, what do you mean?
Well, okay. So, first of all, at the very root, songs have a structure, buildings have a structure, right? And buildings have rooms. Well, okay. In a song, call those rooms the verse. Verse 1 is a room. Verse 2 is a room. The pre-chorus is a room. The chorus is the main room where everybody hangs out. You know what I mean? And
what's the bridge? What is the bridge?
The bridge is where you've got to step back and think about what's going on and maybe reassess or introduce a new thing. You know what I mean? And so.
Isn't the bridge how we go from the living room to the dining room?
Here's the thing. I hate to say it's the bathroom. A lot of stuff happens in the bathroom, but I don't know. It's not the kitchen, and but it's I don't know, the study, the parlor, because the bridge.
Is it a hallway?
It could be a hallway because it leads to the last chorus. Very good, man. It leads to the last chorus and the outro. And the outro, man, that's the bonus room. That's where the party happens, right? That's where you're going full tilt. But anyway,
hold on before you go from there. Yeah. Do you like a long fade out for a song, or do you like the song to stop like it would live, or do you have a preference?
I think whatever serves the track or the song, right? But dude, I miss long fades.
Me too.
I miss long.
Me too.
Fades.
The long fade out.
Yeah.
And you're like it's like at the end of a Stone song, and maybe they're doing a little something different on the bongos, and you're like, wait, I want to hear that, and it fades away.
Are you kidding? Can't always get what you want.
Thank you.
Hey Jude.
Thank you.
And thankfully now we're back to a place, at least format wise, where it's wide open. We can do whatever we want. I mean, gone are the days where, you hit one out of the park and everybody makes a lot of money. But as far as being creative, we're in the best time ever. Especially for indie artists. But anyway, another conversation.
Okay. So you're Nashville, your buddies from Huntsville won't come up.
Yep. So I make the move, I go up. I so many funny stories. I was signed to a publisher as a staff writer. Probably, I think it was by the fall. I moved up in the spring, and by that fall, I think I was signed to a publisher. And I became a staff writer. But dude, I will make this quick, I promise. So, but I get up there. I've got one guy that I know, and this guy is Conway Twitty. You remember the country guy, Conway Twitty? Hello, darling. You know that guy? Conway and Loretta, right? So anyway, I move up there. My buddy there is his road manager, production manager. I'm living with him. I don't know anybody else, right? And so I'm like, well, I got to do something. So he goes, dude, I'll get you a job at Twitty. Twitty City was this amusement park, kind of like Opryland or whatever. can't even, it was like a bad acid trip or something. But anyway, you go there.
This was Conway Twitty's Dollywood.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, I'm trying to imagine what that might have been.
That's what it is. And it's in Hendersonville, just north of Nashville.
It's still there?
No. It's been it became what was there was a they called it it was a Christian religious station or something for years. Anyway, those people bought it and they chopped it all up. But anyway, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go run sound at Twitty City. That's how I make my money or whatever. Well, that really was about me popping in a cassette of Footloose for little teenage kids that were clogging, that had been, bust in from other things, and they get to be on a little set. And I'm like, oh man, like I've made a wrong turn, And I remember my wife at the time, she's coming up to see me, and I'm like, oh man, she's going to see all this. And she does. And I remember sitting there, pressing play on this Footloose cassette tape while these, chubby little kids do their dance. And I just remember thinking, that's it. I'm done. My girlfriend's leaving me, But anyway, shortly after that, I'm a staff writer, and started writing. I was kind of the pop writer. Me and my buddy that both got signed at the same time, we were kind of like the pop writers that they didn't know what to do with in Nashville. Nashville is very pop now, but back in the 80s, it was still it was very much country, and, so I started doing that, but I love being in the studio.
Can I ask you about that? Cause you have some trepidation about the role, and like, if you're a staff writer, pros, you get a steady paycheck and yada, yada with it. But who owns the songs you write? Not you, I assume, right?
Well, it depends on the deal that you make with that publisher, right? And so back then, you're right. More deals were made where the publisher goes, okay, we're going to give you an advance, but we get your publishing, and we're going to pitch your tunes, to all the artists. I mean, there was literally a Nashville pitch sheet, that would circulate about who was going in the studio to cut and blah blah blah, and so they would do that. But here's the way it works. When you write a song, you've got the copyright, and then you've got your royalty, like your BMI side, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's 50%. You always, hopefully, you hold on to that, and then the writer's share is what you can divvy up and do whatever you want with.
Got it.
Now there are a lot more creative deals, but back then, they would get your publishing for a specific amount of time. But yeah.
And do you remember, and I have a feeling I know the answer to this question, do you remember the first time you went to your mailbox and there was a royalty check in it for a song you wrote?
Yeah, but it wasn't a lot, I mean, it was great to get something, but the bigger ones for me at that point were my they call them PROs, performance rights organizations. It was my BMI check. And
right.
That would be for radio and performances and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, dude,
what's that like when you first get paid real money for a song you created?
Okay, so it's fantastic. I'll take the biggest thing, and I'm going somewhere with this. The biggest thing actually for me was actually hearing something that I did on the radio. I mean, that was
going to be my next question.
Well, dude, it's so cliche. I know it's so cliche, but that was a big one. But I didn't.
Listen. I've never listened to a song I wrote on the radio.
Oh, dude, I remember that.
What was the song, Monroe?
It was a song by an artist. It was the first record I ever produced. It was an artist named Judson Spence on Atlantic Records. Doug Morris, Ahmet Ertegun, they signed this whole thing, and they sent us out to L.A. to do this record under the watchful eye of Jimmy Iovine. I mean,
no shit,
dude. Crazy stories there. But anyway, first single from that record, a tune called Yeah Yeah Yeah, and it was that was like 98. And I mean, they wore it out. He was like the biggest signing of 1988. And this blue-eyed soul kid from Pascagoula, Mississippi. So here's what happened with that. And this will tie up this little section that we're talking about. But so I'm at this little publishing studio. They had publishing company. They had a little studio that had a 12-track recorder. They don't even make these things anymore. The thing would break or whatever, but it was an Akai 12-track. Horrible, literally used. You ever seen one of these, Christopher? They had video cassettes, man. And so I just learned how to use that thing backwards and forward. I had a manager friend because I loved the studio. And I told the publishing, my writer's director, I said, dude, just give me the keys. I'm going to live here. This is where so I ended up producing demos for the writers and all these different people around town. So a manager friend drops this kid off at my doorstep and said, hey, I'm signing this kid. He's really good. He doesn't have anything right now, but I think you could do something with him. Drops him off. We woodshed. We hit it off immediately. Woodshed over the next 3 months. We locked the door in the studio and we wrote and demoed that record. That became the Atlantic record, the Judson Spence record, and 14 label offers. We were ping-ponging from New York to LA because every time we were about to sign, like Epic would call from LA going, don't sign with Warner, just come. And what was supposed to be a weekend trip to New York to Atlantic ended up being a month, ping-ponging back and forth. It was crazy. We bought clothes, I think. It was nuts. But that was my introduction. But so.
And you're how old at this time?
At this point, there have been a lot of ups and downs. I'm 27 or 28.
So a decade into
decade into it. Yeah. So that decade, Eddie, was like, it was writing, it was getting my I was miserably broke on my writer stipend, right? And we'd redo, haggle over our deal and re-up and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, geez, but here's the thing. And this is the way it works with me. I don't know about you guys, but I would bitch and moan. I'm broke, but I'm in this studio learning, getting my chops as a producer. Yeah. That set me up for the rest of my life. And you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that was a big one. But anyway.
Hold on. Could I just pause you there, Monroe?
Yeah.
So you spent the better part of a decade scrounging with almost no money, but you got to live in the studio. I bet you got to meet a lot of incredible people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I bet you got to write with a lot of incredible people.
Yep.
I bet you got to learn all the new tech, because I think most people don't understand to work aboard in a studio today is to be a software developer, essentially, right?
Back then, yeah.
Yeah. And so like a massive amount of skills you're developing. And so, today, hustle porn and all the bullshit, people think that they can just like, oh yes, ta-da, I'm like an expert in 20 minutes and then I'm Monroe Jones. And yet you put in the hard yards.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I call it the disease. As far as creativity goes, we're all creative. I firmly believe that. But not all of us have the disease, I think, or the pull or whatever you want. So I could not do it. There was no alternative. I couldn't not do it. I was just compelled. And so, yeah, I was in there all the time. And it was, when it sucked, I knew it, but you're right. I got to be in there and creativity is freedom for me. If I can make something, boy, oh boy, that's it.
Wait. I want to double click on that. So I kind of understand it, but I want to make sure. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so there's a feeling like, what's crazy? So there are a million definitions for creativity. A million definitions. At its simplest, it can be, hey, you made something, you brought something into existence that didn't exist a minute ago, right? That's one thing. But for me, when I create, I'm free. And what happens is that process and long form slow dopamine transcends any of my circumstances, the bills that have to be paid, the whatever's. And here's another thing. I know you guys pressed my button.
Wait. Just long form slow dopamine.
Yes.
That is one of the best definitions of freedom, creative freedom that I've ever heard. Because so there's a lot of feelings you can get that are short form, come and go. It's a, dopamine hit, but then also like, high, low crash. Like, but this idea of like, so I've done a lot of food and beverage work, and the holy grail that everyone in the coffee energy drink space is like, how do you slow sustainable energy because you don't have that crash? Like long form slow dopamine. What like how long? Like what does it mean? Like, how is it different than a momentary high? Why is it good? Like tell us all of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, geez, I'm no expert, but what the way experience, I think the whole thing is, first of all, I mean, it's almost like sort of, but it's way better. It's kind of the difference between coffee and mushroom coffee. You know what I mean? Or something that makes you focus without the jitter. So
Mm.
it's long form is all the things that go along with long form are the things of the great feeling of accomplishment, the thing that you made something special. But here's the main thing. Here's the main thing. When it's a short, I keep looking at my phone, man, because I just can't help it. But because
Source
that's
of all
what
short form everything. So
it is, and what
You could turn
happens
that
is,
shit off anytime you want, Monroe.
I know that's another disease, right? And so, but the problem is those are spikes, you know.
Mhm.
The one of the greatest things about the slow dopamine that happens when you're making something is there's a bliss there, and I think that bliss is self forgetfulness, because when you're in the zone and you're in some kind of flow, you lose yourself in it, and so there's no more self consciousness. There's no what is better than that? What's better than
Wow.
that?
You know,
Yeah.
what's so fascinating about it is that it's when you self forgetfulness is awesome. You're present in the moment. You're present in the music. You're present in the creation. But it's also what I'm hearing you say is that starts before in the creation process. It starts with the feeling when it becomes alive, and then it also seems to last forever. Like I'm a little bit like um, I had completely forgotten this, Monroe. So I played the viola growing up, and for our high school
Oh, that's
graduation,
great. Yeah.
I wrote a song for our called "Moving On." Like I haven't thought about it in like however many decades or whatever else it is, but like
You better
it's
record that thing, man.
I have it on some old VHS somewhere. Actually it's probably on YouTube because I think my school's been digitizing all this stuff. It's dumb. It's not any good, I'm sure, but like it's one of those things where I think you're exactly right. Like in as much as I'd be, obviously very reluctant to, put it anywhere in this discussion, and like, but there, for what it is, I feel that slow form dopamine about it because it's like you're exactly right. Regardless of how I wasn't trying to be the Beatles, I wasn't trying to be Monroe Jones, but that feeling of creation, it lasted. It captured a feeling and a moment at that time that was real and genuine. And I think I feel that about the first thing that I ever wrote for HBR. I feel that about my first book, and it's like
Absolutely.
it when you know what it feels like, the slow form, um, do, long dopamine neuro is like it also feels eternal at some level.
Yep.
That line from Gladiator when what's his name Russell Crowe's like, what we do on in this life echoes through eternity. Like there is that sense of like I'm part of something that will endure and last, and even if it's just for me.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, God, there's so many of those analogies, right? I mean, there's the famous Chariots of Fire thing where the guy goes, "When I run, I feel God's pleasure." You know, all of
Mm-hmm.
those. Dude, listen, there is something very spiritual about creativity, and there just is. And I think that we're spiritual beings, and so
Mm.
whether we know what we're doing or not, if we're drawn to that, I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, I just think, and here's the cool thing about it is, I think that long form dopamine can kind of be uh, conjured up is not the phrase I'm looking for. But anyway, so every time you go back to pick up that work, you get a great feeling about it, even with all the, I got to change that, or I got to, and so here's the last thing I'll add, or unless you guys want to keep talking. So here's the really great thing about it, and I miss this so much. I'm actually in the middle of 2 projects in Nashville right now that I'm producing, 2 different artists, and it's kind of pulled me back into.
Can you tell us who?
Yeah, they're brand new guys. One guy is a pop, super pop, almost theatrical pop guy named William Ham. And the other guy is a full on, dude, you would love this guy. He's a guitar slinger, country guy named Hill Elliott. And great story about these guys. And I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm documenting the whole thing. It's going to be a documentary about their story and the pull and the whole deal.
Content about the content, maybe, I think.
Yes. Absolutely.
The content about the content can be more valuable than the content.
Wow. And we just captured that. Can I quote you on that?
Absolutely, you can.
It's yours.
Yeah. And so, so here's where I was going. So now take that slow form dopamine and put that in a studio control room where you've got a band that you've made 20 records with over the years, and you guys love each other, you speak the same language, and you launch into this tune that blows your mind. And now collectively, all of these guys, we're all sharing this dopamine moment in the control room as we're going crazy listening to this stuff at ear-piercing level. And that is a whole other level. I mean, there's nothing like it. And that's what a lot of kids, I know I sound like a Luddite, that's what a lot of kids making great music, but making music records sitting on the edge of their bed. So what a lot of these people don't experience. I mean, the human component is a big deal.
You know what's so my mind is going bonkers, Monroe, because like my youngest Luke is 17. He wants to study neuroscience, right? And so he talks a lot about the effects of dopamine and adrenaline, like all the things on the makeup of your brain chemistry. Also, is loves hip hop. Went to Lala. Got his friend got him incredible seats and saw Kendrick Lamar up close and the like. And so like I've been telling him like there is a link between music and neuroscience that you ought to explore. And that there's something, and when you said slow form dopamine, it's the clearest, most concrete linkage that I'm talking about. Because like I'm like, there's something special, and you would know better than I, is like, why is it that everyone's favorite music is the music they discover as a teenager when your hormones are going crazy and everything else? There's something about that. And what you were describing is not just spiritual and not just metaphysical. I am certain there is a neuroscience component going on, as you said, not just it's a tune that you like blows your mind. It's the ear-piercing volume, but it's also I've created with these guys it's how I feel about Christopher. Like something that I write is not the same. That's something that we write together because we have history.
You guys are a band. You are
100%.
Yeah.
And when you do it in a human live component, like it's one thing for Christopher and I to write together. It's another thing when we're together in Hawaii, jamming and writing together. Like it's all of these things together. It's like, it compounds and it creates something that I think words fail to capture, but we've called it thinker's high, but I think it's so much more than that, Christopher. Like I'd never heard the slow form dopamine. Like we gotta, by the way, you take content about the content, we'll take slow form dopamine and we'll, credit each other.
Well, yeah, we need to write a whole lot about that with you, Monroe. It's so true. And I think I speak for Eddie and Kat. We're addicted to it. We're addicted to it. And when we I'll speak for myself on this one. When I go too long without it, this is going to sound crazy, I'm sure, but I don't feel like me and my life doesn't feel like my life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just read, I'm battered with memes now in all my feeds, but some of them are good, man. And there was one about some artist, maybe it was a painter, saying, when I'm creating, that's when I feel the most like me. And man, that just resonated, and dude, Eddie, I cannot take credit for the slow dopamine thing. I've heard it before. Maybe I'll popularize it, but thank you.
Just like Malcolm Gladwell does. It's you and Malcolm in the same camp there.
Yeah, well, but no, it's so true. It's absolutely true. Yeah.
Well, in a world where there's a lot of short form dopamine out there, what's more precious than that? I mean, and it's so kind of fascinating to think about, like all the things that kind of ail the world, like mental health is a big thing with younger folk, and who'd have thunk that the best solution might be creation? You know, like, hey, you don't feel good about yourself. Maybe it's because you don't know who you are yet, and you don't feel who you are until you're creating.
Yeah.
You know, you feel the emptiness of a short high. Like, well, maybe let's build a portfolio of slow form dopamine that will last you for the rest of your life. Because I actually think, like, there's something about, it's not even slow form. I just think it's unending. Maybe, I don't know if that's a way to think about it. Like, the dopamine doesn't deplete from
lifelong
creation.
dopamine.
Lifelong, yeah.
I mean, there aren't many healthy addictions out there, man. You know,
that's another great one. Yeah.
I've tried a bunch of the not healthy ones,
and we're still here.
And some of them I still enjoy on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But, so Monroe, so you're in it for 10 years. You have your first hit. How do you go from there to U2, Jackson Browne? I mean, your list is crazy, batshit, all your people that you've worked with.
Yeah. Okay. So full circle. Now here's where a lot of the Forrest Gump things happen. But I mean, I had to do something to get into the room, right? So U2, so A&M, you guys, A&M, such a great history. I mean, Herb Albert and Jerry Moss, right? That's the A&M of A&M Records. And so they bought Charlie Chaplin's old film studio, right, on the corner of Sunset and La Brea, or near the corner of Sunset and La Brea. And that became A&M Records, and they built an incredible studio facility that had 5 different rooms. Tapestry recorded there, man. The Carpenters, all of this great stuff. We Are the World was in Studio A, and then the main engineer there, Shelley Ackes and Jimmy Iovine, they designed this room. Everybody called it the D room. It was the new room. And so when I got there, we worked in the D room. And so this again was the Judson. This was like the summer of like awakening for me, or whatever you call it, So I'm out there. I'm Jimmy Iovine's got us under his wing, and we're doing Judson's record. I'm in Studio C doing vocals late one night. Jimmy is down in D because he's producing Rattle and Hum. So all the U2 guys are down there, and so they had been coming and going all summer, and kind of got to know them. And so I get a call, in the control room. It's like, hey, I play keyboards. We need somebody to come down and play keys on this tune, would you be up for it? And, I'm like, no, I'm freaking, of course, hung up. But I'm we're in the thick of what we're doing. And, my buddies are like, we're going to kill you if you don't go down there. It's like, hung up the phone, run down there.
It's not every day people get called to play keys for U2.
So, Christopher, dude, listen to this. So I go, and I'm steeped in all the stories. Of course, I'm a U2 fan and all this stuff, but we always heard that Bono would sing his songs through, and I don't have one handy, but it's a cheap Shure 57 microphone, right? Like on the fly, like he'd stand up and and a lot of those vocals would end up being keeper vocals on records, and you're going like, well, no, you can't, that couldn't happen. You're not. So I walk in, they lead me to the keyboard. Keyboard players are the dorkiest people on the planets. We're the guys in skinny ties. We can't play a freaking Gibson or Gretsch hollow body that looks like a Corvette, right? We have to play synthesizers. So anyway, they lead me in there. The whole band, Adam Clayton and Larry Mullins, and Edge and Bono, they're all set up in a circle in the tracking room, and this one little synth is in the middle. So I'm walking over there, and I'm like freaking out. And if this song is difficult, man, I'm going to be toast, right? And so we launch into it. Thankfully, this is a tune that was like 3 chords. It's called "All I Want Is You," unbelievable song on Rattle and Hum, blah blah blah. I didn't get credit for this because they recorded it. They spent a year on this album, and as we would do takes, and I'd go into the control room and hear the conversation, they would go, hey, is this as good as the version we did in the train station in Brussels? It's kind of nuts. But anyway, we launch into this thing. Bono is literally handheld 57 singing into my ear, yelling out chords as he sings the lyrics. They're all going for it. I mean, that was pretty quick, fast dopamine in a weird, teeth gritty sort of way. But it was, so that, because, so at A&M, at any given moment in those 5 rooms, you would have Crosby, Stills, and Nash in one room. You would have U2 in another room. You might have Rod Stewart in another room. And literally, like, I met Bono by walking out of the deal, and you had all these long hallways to get up to the one door at reception to get out of the studio. And so you end up on a 5-minute walk with somebody shoulder to shoulder. With me, it was Bono. And so, stuff like that. So I met a lot of people that way by working at A&M. And then I ended up working with a band called Venice. You're too young for this. Do you remember the Lennon Sisters? Like, they were a big 60s. They were on like the Andy Williams show, big TV, and unbelievable.
I remember the Andy Williams show. I don't remember them.
Yeah, they were, and Lawrence, okay. The SNL skit where Kristen Wiig, and there are these 3 girls, and they're singing, and they're doing like, I'm Wanda, and they're doing, and one has the tiny hands. They're mimicking the Lennon Sisters. Anyway, so just, I ended up in a band with their little brothers. And I love these guys. They're my brothers. We were in this band. They're 3rd generation Venice, California family. So I'm this hick pulled into their world. And so I produced their demos. They end up getting signed with a label called Modern Records, which was Paul Fishkin, which was Stevie Nicks' label. And so we had the same manager, this guy named Glenn Parrish, who took care of me while I was out there. And so anyway, I go away for a summer, and I had done these demos. I had to go do the 40th anniversary Atlantic thing in New Orleans and all this stuff. Anyway, come back. They've gotten a deal. They've signed the deal with Modern, and Danny Korchmar, Cooch, who's produced all the James Taylor stuff and Jackson Browne stuff and Don Henley stuff, solo records. Anyway, he played the guitar on Tapestry. Huge. So Danny, they've decided to grab Danny to produce. And I'm like, crap, I'm not producing. And they were like, well, you weren't here. So then they said, but why don't you join the band? And I said, okay, cool. So I just stayed in LA for the next 5 years. But we ended up, because of that, on the road. We opened for Stevie. I'd be playing Dreams, and she's standing right here. We'd end up hanging. She would invite us over. We'd end up like hanging at her house in Phoenix when we were all on the road. And we'd play Rhiannon on her piano. Like, she fell asleep on my shoulder. I mean, it's just nutty. Like, it's so weird.
Landslide is one of my favorite songs of all time.
Brilliant. I mean, she's brilliant and funny and sharp and just really cool. But anyway, so that was the Stevie Nicks thing. We ended up touring with her, and then I ended up, we co-wrote stuff. My buddy Scott Crago, who was the drummer in Venice, he's now been in the Eagles since the Hell Freezes Over tour. Like, he's behind the kit and plays when Henley doesn't play. And but so
anyway, he's Don Henley when Don Henley's on at the front.
Yes, that's right. And literally, like, and he would play on stuff for Henley, like solo records and stuff like that. And, Scott wouldn't care, but he gets to a point where they'll be in the control room, and Henley will play up to a point, and then he'll just hand the sticks to Scott and go, hey, here, I've got an empire to run. And then he splits, and Scott finishes up. But yeah, I mean, it was just that. And then these guys, the Lennon guys, unbelievable singers. We played all over LA. We did the Whiskey on a regular basis, and the Roxy and the Troubadour, and we played all those clubs. And so these guys we were carrying the torch for Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Jackson Browne and all these guys, because I'm in the era of Rat and Guns N' Roses, and I mean, we're still a hairy band, man, but we loved all of the old singer-songwriters.
But you weren't in spandex.
No, thankfully. That's maybe the only thing I never tried, clothing wise, but a lot of different looks. But anyway, we did a version of Guinevere And there were 4 lead singers in Venice. There still are. They're still around. They're doing their thing. They're great. And the story, David Crosby heard, hey, these punks do Guinevere better than you guys. It's your song. And so he was like, I got to go see this. So he had this horrific motorcycle accident. We were playing at a place, everybody knows. And so we were playing at this little place in Santa Monica that we played at all the time. And they roll David Crosby in. He's in a cast up to his hip. They roll him in a wheelchair right up to the front of the stage. And the guys did Guinevere, and he wept. And that's how we got to know David Crosby. So we ended up in the studio working with him and Jackson Browne too, because they're good friends. Yeah. So I don't know.
Can you, it's so interesting when I'm trying to figure out how to formulate this, but like to have that, when you have an artist who's, written and performed a song and weeps at somebody else performing their work because they can recognize something like, this was a thing that I don't know what to name that, but like when Christopher first reached out to me, so we are not very similar people.
You wept?
Well, no. There was a moment that
most people weep when they see me coming, but for different reasons.
So we had no contact. He had seen an HBR thing that I'd written. He reaches out to me out of the blue, and all the Christopher energy and all that kind of stuff. And then he goes, my name's Christopher, and this is my background. This is blah, blah, blah. I'm writing a book called Play Bigger. It's about category design. And I read your article on category creation, and I just wanted to reach out. The first feeling that I had was like, well, shoot, I wanted to write a book about category design because I was working on my book, Super Consumers. And it was in my mind, would love to do it. And then, so there was, at first you have this feeling of like, missed opportunity. And then the more I talk to him, the more I realize, like, you know what? Christopher has a much better perch to talk about category design than I do. From Silicon Valley, like my world is kind of S&P 500. They're much more risk averse. So, he's a bigger authority on it. The world will hear it better from him, and he's already far down the path. So what I had said was like, you know what? I kept this. I don't think I told Christopher at the time, but I'm like, you know what? This is great. The world needs to hear this. Let me shove everything that I have that might be helpful to Christopher. And then one of the things that how we continued to we got closer and closer was I introduced him to my editor at HBR, and they ended up publishing something out of the excerpt out of that. And Christopher shared with me later on how meaningful that was for him, having grown up reading HBR to be featured in it. But like, there is this kind of like moment when I think creators can have when you're not precious about the work, when you're a missionary, not a mercenary. And that for David Crosby to cry to recognize that, take my ego out of it. The world is better off when Monroe Jones and crew sings my song. Like, I don't know what to describe that, but I know what that feels like. And it's a genuine time when you can like, that's a creator. I respect them and I want to jam with them because there's no ego involved, just the mission and the music.
Well, absolutely right. And I think too, you can be in different states of mind. I think like when you're in that moment, and maybe there's some of that self-forgetfulness that's happening in a good way, you're more apt to go, oh my gosh, we're in the middle of something together here. Let's all contribute. Whereas had you just heard, they're doing your song, from something, then you're going to be more possessive or whatever about it. Maybe, I don't know. But David Crosby, man, and here's the deal: those dudes. The lead singers of Venice, they ended up forging a really great relationship, and they did a lot of stuff together. I ended up coming back and producing a lot of stuff in Nashville, but I saw a lot of back and forth between Crosby and them, and Crosby was very generous because I've heard him push Venice on radio shows and interviews and stuff just because he simply loves, and you spoke to this basically, he simply loves what they're about and what they do. And I think he sees more merit. He really has the desire. Maybe it's the power of art. He has the desire to help them. He's not threatened.
Well, you know what's so fascinating is like there is I know this because I was born and raised in Hawaii. Like one of the recent winners of American Idol, Ian Tongi, the song he sings, "Monsters," is a James Blunt song.
Yep.
And when Ian sings a song, like all the everybody's Lionel Richie, they're all crying. All the men are crying because it's a story about losing a father, and he just lost his father. Like, and later on in the season, the two of them, James Blunt, the songwriter, and Ian, they sing it together. And it's such an amazing moment to see that. And the idea of generosity, I think, is to me, there's something about that, because I think you're right. The most creative people that I've met are some of the most generous people. Like I don't know that it's always the case. Like I think you can be creative and kind of a selfish person, not self-forgetful, but in general, my experience has been the truly creative people are truly generous, because I do think that there's something about the slow form dopamine that is not there's an abundance to it, and there's sense of like, it's a wonderful thing, but it's not mine, it's the world's. And who am I to stand in the way of somebody else creating slow form dopamine for everybody else? Like I don't know if you can unpack that, but like, does that your experience in your world, was creativity and generosity go hand in hand, or?
Not always. Now they do. So here's my own experience. I'm just going to confess, man. You know, a lot of hard stories too, right? With anything in the music industry or anything, especially if you stick around on the planet long enough, you're going to have some stories, right? And I'll confess, man. I would be in situations where I would be possessive or controlling, especially if I was working with an artist and we hit something out of the park and they have a gold record, and then I find out they want to go with another producer for this or that, I would be like crushed. And I can tell you, these people love me. We are friends. And now I see that, oh, that was the right call because they wanted to do this, blah blah. They weren't shunning me. They're doing stuff with their art, right? So all that to say, man, you guys, it's probably been in the last 8 or 10 years that I've actually gotten to a point where it's not about what you can get from this. It's all about what you can give. And the only way you're going to be free from this angst of they rip me off or whatever it is to just let go of the whole thing. Because what you have is not the thing that's valuable. It's not necessarily this widget or this thing that you made. It's what's inside you that comes out. And that's not depleted. That's as long as you're alive, you've got that to give, right? And so, yeah, I mean, but boy, that has been a journey, and I wasn't always like that. And one of the things I learned in LA before I knew what I was going to do was I learned a lot about what not to do. And I saw producers literally ridicule artists to get performances out of them and stuff like that. And I'm like, I remember just being in the corner going like, okay, note to self, this is not the way I'm going to get a great performance out of an artist. And so when I got into it and I got back to Nashville and did probably, I don't know, 65 label things over the next years, I just was like, okay, I'm going to create a safe environment for this person. I'm going to make them feel like they can screw up and try things and experiment personally because they are in a safe place. They're not going to get ripped off. I'm a writer. Writing got me my gig. When I got back to Nashville from living in LA, I kind of had this weird thing where, okay, I produce and I write and I play, but I felt like I'd spread myself too thin in LA. So I thought, okay, whatever the first thing that presents itself to me now that I'm back in Nashville, I'm going to try to go with that and just laser beam focus, even if that means forsaking the other things or whatever. Well, it was producing. And so I thought, okay, I am going to intentionally not write with these people. I mean, if they ask me to, I will, but producers are notorious for if they're writers, for trying to get their songs on records, right? So I want the ultimate trust of the band or the artist. So I'm going to go in there and go, no, man, I'm not like you. I'm not going to push my songs. I'm not going to let you have any songs for this record because I want you to come to me and trust me with your tunes enough to where you'll open yourself up and we can dissect those tunes and make them great, because you're not fearing that I'm going to try to then go claim credit for your song, you know? And it's just little things like that along the way. And what I find is, you know, Christopher, going full circle here with the podcast that I heard you on that time, I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, if you give enough people what they want, you'll always get what you want. Or it was some horrible paraphrase, right? And you know,
That's what I remember Zig saying.
Yeah, right. And so
you can have anything you want if you give other people what they want.
That's really good, man. You know, I think, right, Seth Godin's a big fan too, right, of Zig Ziglar. I believe I've heard him, but
he and I actually, he's been on my podcast once or twice, and we've talked about Zig. Yeah, how do you not love Zig Ziglar? I mean, come on.
I listen to the tapes, man. You know,
I listen to the tapes in the Automobile University.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so I mean, for me, Eddie, I think it was a process. The people that I'm closest to now are the people that are generous, because you don't have anything to lose, really. You just don't. But yeah.
Well, it's so fascinating to hear you say, because like I think there is a choice, and it's not, to your point, they're not mutual. Success is not mutually exclusive with generosity. Like you can succeed and be a jerk. You can be successful and be generous. However, the part that it's so fascinating to hear. Like I don't think you talk about self-forgetfulness, which is, I think it's such a wonderful phrase, but like the self-awareness, I don't think I fully understood what you're describing is like that an artist of any kind of fame and notoriety can be ridiculed in order to get a great performance. Like I think like you see that in sports, like a coach will coach you up really hard or whatever, but that sounds like there's some stories there of how dark it can get.
Yeah, it can get dark. And I think, I mean, there are a lot of egos. I mean, you know, we can say this now because, I mean, I can talk about this now because he's passed on, so he won't come after me, hopefully. But you know, Phil Spector, you know, all of those stories, he was notorious for coming in and plopping a gun on the console. You know, I mean, that's just, I mean, if that's not marking your territory and saying be afraid, I don't know what is, right? But those stories are, I'm not saying anything that people don't know. That's well published.
No, I've heard way worse about him than that.
Yeah, right. And
I mean, the horror stories about that guy are frightening.
Oh man, it's so true. And I just think everybody's, you know, I don't know if maybe in some of those cases, Eddie, that's where a producer is going for something that he's trying to pull out of the artist, which, yes, absolutely. But I think you need to err on the side of, okay, what is this artist trying to say, and how are they trying to say it? And how do I help them get that thing that's in all its glory in their head that they're hearing out for the world to hear? And I just only know what has worked for me over 40 years, you know, to try to do that and help people. Yeah, but.
And so, Monroe, if I'm a person who I look at you and I go, it'd be very easy for people to look at you and look at your career and go, well, you know, I can't be Michael Jordan either. And I can't be that fucking guy. And people, you know, we hear this word talent, like, oh, yes, well, right next to Michael Jordan's spleen is this organ called basketball awesome. And he's got that. And right next to Monroe's liver is this thing called legendary music. And he has one of those things and I didn't get one. Right. And so some of us can treat talent that way. And of course, yes, talent's a real thing. People are drawn to things. People are clearly better at some things than others. So, but at the same time, people sitting and listening to you going, well, you know, fuck, this guy is incredible. I could never make a living being radically creative. And so if I was somebody who looked at you in a different field, maybe, or maybe in music, and said, well, Monroe Jones has lived a life of radical creativity, has achieved every level of success you can have financially, as well as, of course, all the accolades in your industry. But I'm just a slug here sitting drinking beer on the couch, and I don't know what to do. What would you say to my slug self? Who feels intimidated by your creative career?
Well, you know, I'm just going to say a couple of things, and maybe this will steer us there. So when you're a kid and you're dreaming of making it in the music world, right? Those dreams in my head were, hey, I'm going to be the next Elton John or Billy Joel or whomever, right? And you get to a place like Nashville where it's a creator's hotbed, right, of people who have made their way from all over the world to be there. And so you've got the best. There's a reason they call it Guitar Town or whatever. You've got the best people on the planet there. And so I get there and I realize, oh man, I don't have the chops to be this Elton John guy that I thought I had. But what do I have, and what can I cultivate? And for me, that was writing and producing and playing to a degree, not all equally. I mean, the production by far, was bigger for me on those things. But I think we have to look at things. We have to take honest looks at, okay, what am I capable of? What do I bring to the table? How am I unique? And can I carve out a way with these things? Instead of like, nope, I'm taking my ball and going home because I can't be Elton John, and I can't be Michael Jordan, right? And so I think that's one way of looking at it. But I think the other way of looking at it, you guys, what are you, 14 books now? What is it? Bestsellers? I mean,
15 number one bestsellers, but who's counting?
Okay. That's right.
The dyslexic fuck without a GED is the one who's counting, for the record.
How about that, man? And so I'm going to tell you, my wife hears me yelling, like when I catch one of you guys posts on a LinkedIn feed or whatever, because it resonates like so hard. I mean, and it's in the form of, no, I'm not kidding, because you guys are all behind the follow your different. You have a unique thing. Nobody has our DNA. Nobody has your DNA or your DNA or my DNA. Nobody ever has, and nobody ever will. So take that a step further. Nobody's got your creative DNA either. So no one can put your stamp on whatever it is that you're making. So you may have to sit and go, well, what can I do? What is the thing and that might take some work and some trying some things, and I'm not good at that. But if you shoot with, this is what my heart is pulling me on, and this is where my voice is, you're going to find a way that you can contribute and be creative. And the Beatles were bigger than the sum of their parts, man. You guys are the Beatles in your world, and you guys, if you weren't together, you wouldn't, you'd be doing great things, but you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now, together. And I just think there's room for everybody. I just think you've got to okay. So I was talking about self-forgetfulness. Now it's self-awareness. You got to just take a look there. But dude, everybody's creative. I get people saying, well, I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I'm like, man, I love you. Here's the deal. Actually, your bones are even creative. They're creating marrow and support for your body. I mean, you can't not be creative, But anyway.
Yeah. Well, you just, I mean, of the many things that you've said that are bars, Monroe, like this idea of self-forgetfulness is the goal, because then then you have never ending dopamine, slow form dopamine. That's kind of when you're in that flow state. The path to get the self-forgetfulness is extreme self-awareness.
Ooh.
But self-awareness is a means to an end. You cannot stay in self-awareness so that you become inward focused. You must become self-aware to become self-forgetful. And when you do that, endless long-form dopamine that you can enjoy and others can enjoy too. Sounds like the secret to life, my friend. Right.
Jeez, there. Man. I'm going to listen to this thing when it comes out. That was amazing. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, while it's in my mind, Monroe, the fact that you feel the way you do about our work is the most affirming thing we could hear. Because our respect and admiration for you in your world is over the top. I mean, I was a musician as a kid. If I had stayed in music, I would have dreamt of a career like yours, right? And I love that you're a fuck up Elton John. What a disaster or failure of a life you've had.
Amen, brother. Yeah. That's how we grow, right?
Listen, I'm a failed member of the Ramones, just for the record.
Dude, I love all your Ramones references. I love you got a couple of Les Pauls on the wall, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I have a custom white and gold Les Paul right over there.
Wow.
And these are actually, do you remember Hagstrom guitars?
Oh yeah, big time.
So my uncle, who's the reason I love music, God rest his soul, my crazy Uncle John. Everybody's got to have a crazy uncle. I'm crazy uncle to many. Well, he was my crazy uncle. And he played Hagstroms. And so this one right here is his. And then there's one next to it that's mine. I walked into a junk shop when I was about 20 in Verdun, Montreal, Quebec. And this Hagstrom that is almost identical to my uncle's is hanging on the wall at the back of the shop. And it's $150. Wow. And I didn't have the money. And so I borrowed $20 from my girlfriend to put $20 down on it and paid it off over time on layaway. But yeah, old vintage guitars are pretty awesome.
Yeah. Can I show you one that I've got? Of course.
Yeah, of course. Here's the deal. You can show us 10.
Well, okay. So, are you guys too young to remember a guitar icon named Duane Eddy? Peter Gunn.
No, I know who Duane Eddy is for sure.
Yeah, huge.
Great tone. Unbelievable tone. People have been trying to recreate that tone ever since.
Well, they have. And Born to Run is, down, 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 down. Bruce Springsteen, admittedly, he was going for a Duane Eddy tune when he came up with that whole thing. And, okay, so all to say, Duane Eddy and his wife, Duane was my surrogate dad. And I remember holding one of his albums when I was 4 years old. I mean, so by the time I met him, it's when I was working on this Cliff Richard record, and we were doing a song, and I remember thinking, man, this track sounds kind of like a Duane Eddy track. And so I called my assistant, who was half my age, so I knew she didn't know who Duane was, but I was like, hey, I need you to find this guy for me, Duane Eddy. He's played with everybody. Paul McCartney produced his record a couple of records ago, blah, blah, blah. And so she's like, okay, and turns out everybody ends up in Nashville. It's just where they go, right? And so turns out Duane's in Nashville. He ends up coming by my studio and he plays on this record, and we become family friends for the next 20 years. I mean, our kids, we do holidays together, the whole thing, and he's got amazing kids. So Duane played this incredibly famous Gretsch 6120 Chet Atkins, the orange one, the big orange. That's the Duane, and I mean, we used that on his record.
Such a sexy guitar. Oh my God. Dude. And in orange. Whew.
Yeah. Right. And so I'm a Beatles guy. So he would always give me grief about this. My favorite Gretsch, and I met Fred Gretsch through Duane because Duane's a Gretsch guy. So anyway, I'm like, well, my favorite Gretsch is the Duo Jet, man, because that's what George Harrison played. He played a black Duo Jet, and Duane's like, and I mean, Duane, they were his buddies. He works with them. I've got a picture. I'm looking at it right now of Duane with George Harrison and Bob Dylan. It's so great. But anyway, 1 second. I got to show you this. All right. Here is my black Gretsch Duo Jet, right? Look at how beautiful. This thing is like a Corvette.
Is that a Bigsby on it?
Yeah, man. It's just, isn't that
It beautiful? Is like a Corvette.
Yeah, and so.
How long have you had that, Monroe?
Well, so here's the deal. Duane passed away a year ago in May.
Oh, I'm so sorry, buddy.
Yeah, and so literally the day after he passed away, we're all up at his house, and we're with his wife Deed and his kids, and so Deed calls me into the living room and she goes, "Hey, come here, I got something for you," and I go in there, you guys, and that's that was sitting on the couch. And she goes, Dwayne meant to give this to you, and he just ran out of time. And but he had gotten it for you, you know. And so there it is. It's emotional, but I mean, how cool is that? I mean, is that incredible? Oh, and so full circle, they just did a big tribute for him at the Opry last month or month before last. Peter Frampton, Vince Gill, Grace Bowers, yeah, they all came out and did this amazing show and played Duane Eddy tunes all night, and it was just fantastic.
It's too bad Peter Frampton can't play guitar.
Oh God, you know, I mean, it's crazy. You know, he's got whatever's going on with him health wise, so he can't stand, but he sits now and just he's still, he can play everything and sing everything he ever did. He's amazing. But yeah, he's got something going on. But yeah, everybody's getting older.
Well,
you're unbelievable, Monroe Jones. You really are. Incredible
100%.
Inspiration to us.
What a joy. And it makes me also think about my fondest wishes for when the good Lord decides it's our time to check out, that the funeral is just a long playlist of all of our favorite creations, the ones that we have and the ones that we love. And like that, what a wonderful way to celebrate life.
Oh, hey man. Hey, if there's a rock and roll heaven, right? Yeah.
We know there is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, you guys, thank you so much. Listen, let's do this again. I mean,
please.
100%.
Absolutely.
We could do a weekly series with you.
Okay. I'll run out of stories at some point, but hey,
I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that. Hey, you're not in that. You don't live in Nashville now, do you?
No, I very nice city. I say I'm exiled in Birmingham, but Birmingham's actually a really cool town. But
how far is it from Nashville?
3 hours, and I'm literally getting ready to head back up on Sunday because that's where I'm doing these two projects, these two albums, and so I'm in the studio up there. I'm back and forth constantly.
Well, get this. My niece Gemma is the head of artist relations in Nashville for Spotify.
Oh, wow. How cool
I
is
shit
that?
you not. Her name's Gemma. She's unbelievable. Anyway, we haven't quite locked it down yet, but it looks like Al Ramadan and I might be going to see her in August. So I'll let you know. I'd love to see you. I'll come to Birmingham, or you can meet us there.
Let's go.
And the first 47 beers are on me.
For a trip out to you guys' neck of the woods too. I've got.
I'd love to have you here. I'd love to have you on the West Coast with me for sure. You can come stay with me,
baby.
Amazing. Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks, you guys. Loved it.
All right.
Love you, Monroe. You're
an
incredible inspiration.